Hello everyone, this is Alexander, and in today's video we'll be going over 3 key mistakes that Year 7s make when using AI. And this of course is part of the series where we talk about how to use AI safely, responsibly, and effectively. Now, teachers are in theory not worried about AI. They're much more worried about the patterns they see every week. And so today we want to go over 3 AI mistakes that reduce the efficiency of Year 7 students' learning and that get them flagged, questioned, or restricted. So the first mistake that pops up a lot is asking AI to rewrite teacher text, and this happens even a lot in the senior school. Students will ask AI to paraphrase textbooks that they got in class. They'll ask it to paraphrase class notes, ask it to work based off the worksheets that they've been given in class. And based on what the AI produces, they'll end up submitting that to the teacher thinking that the work looks original and that it looks refined because it aligns with what the teacher gave them. In reality, this shows little to no processing, which is what teachers are really looking for. You haven't actually practiced a skill, you've avoided it. And because everyone uploads the same source, because oftentimes a lot of students are doing this, the AI responses start to look very similar. The same sources lead to the same outputs, which is very easy to spot. And I've seen several instances in the senior school where this has happened and students have ended up submitting almost exactly identical work simply because they've all inputted the same source. And this does not impress the teachers at all. Not only does it put you at risk of being academically dishonest, but it makes your work look uncreative and makes it look like you haven't done any actual thinking yourself. It also avoids the repetition of skills that you'll need in your exams and which will improve your learning long term. And as said before, it creates very detectable patterns which teachers will almost always pick up on. Mistake number 2 is thinking that using language above your level is necessarily a good thing. Nowadays, there's a lot of students who use AI primarily for the reason that they feel that their language is somewhat unrefined and that they need AI to take their ideas and try to make them sound more eloquent, more fancy, thinking that that's a good thing. And this leads to a very sudden increase in the range of their vocabulary. They become a lot more eloquent, a lot more refined. They start adopting grammar structures which are very unnatural and humans never really use. And they also miss out on an entire drafting process. So you can already see there's a number of negative consequences that are that result from this habit. And most concerningly of all, it leads to loss of personal voice in your writing. And what a lot of teachers look for, especially in the senior school, is for students who are able to adopt the style of writing that is formal, that's sophisticated, but also includes elements of their own personal voice, of their own register and their own style, because that shows personal engagement with the work, personal interest, and shows that you've actually thought about what you're writing yourself. And so in a lot of tasks, this can even boost your mark having a personal voice. So it's a big misconception that using language above your level is necessarily a good thing, and it can be disastrous using AI to achieve this end. In fact, there's a lot of reasons why teachers might care. Like I said, teachers want to see you incorporate your voice, not suppress it. But it's also important to note that the lack of a drafting process diminishes your learning. In fact, most of the learning that's done, of course, you have projects and you want to get a good grade, but most of the learning is done when you're drafting things, when you're looking at mistakes you've made in the draft, looking at what kind of language you've used, trying to improve that. That will translate directly to your capabilities in exams. And by trying to constantly elevate your language through AI and not trying to go through renditions of drafts yourself, you are putting yourself at risk of losing valuable information you gain during the drafting process that can help you when it really matters in exams. Of course, it also results from a misunderstanding of proper writing habits, and it can very easily result in serious consequences because, once again, um, using AI to sort of express your ideas in a way that you might not have otherwise isn't really developing your own your own ideas. It's not developing your own synthesis of your own thoughts. So it can be considered a form of academic dishonesty. And possibly the biggest mistake that year sevens make, which is also quite silent, it's not as noticeable as these other mistakes, is students asking AI to explain how to do something, or better said, using AI whilst not practicing. You watch answers being written, so you examine, but you never actually do the work yourself. In other words, they watch answers form instead of practicing. And this skips a lot of the repetition of answering questions that you need to do, and a lot of the self-critical process where you try to evaluate own gaps in your knowledge and so forth. And so this can also lock you into sort of false sense of security where you think that more is better because you're seeing answers written out. You feel more confident that you know all of this, but in reality, your brain's not thinking, it's just watching. And so you might be much better off just focusing on a small area of the course, trying to learn about that as much as you can by putting your brain through some tough questions so that it'll remember that area of the course better. Of course, teachers care because this gives you false confidence, which will reduce your performance in the exams because you don't actually have the real, you haven't developed the real confidence from actually going through questions and seeing if you know what you should know. And of course, skills don't stick like this either. And because, of course, you're constantly using AI to validate your own confidence before assessments, you become a lot more dependent on AI tools. Your brain doesn't really want to do the work anymore to go through the questions itself. It simply has grown accustomed or used to watching someone else do the work. In this case, that's AI. And that leads to you never really exposing gaps in knowledge before too late. You might feel confident before an exam, but once you get in that room and you see the questions, you realize that nobody's out there answering them for you. You have to do that yourself. And so it's better to expose your gaps in knowledge before the exam by doing questions than otherwise waiting until then. That being said, however, there are good ways that you can use AI for your learning, using it to generate flashcards or quizzes. So it's not as if you should completely abandon AI in your study. So what does smart AI usage then look like? Well, you need to learn from your own mistakes. Um, you need to ask for explanations, not finished work. Not finished work. Keep your own voice because this will elevate your writing style, and engage, not observe. Um, and always practice at your level as well. Some good rules of thumb. Um, when you're using AI, you should always ask who did the thinking. If the AI is doing the thinking, then you know you're going down the wrong path. It should always be you. Otherwise, you put yourself at risk of academic dishonesty, or you may just be reducing your own grades long term by not engaging in that key thinking process that will make skills and knowledge stick with you. Could AI have submitted the work without you? How much did you actually do? If the AI could have just generated the work and submitted it then by itself, um, that means you didn't really do much. And so it should be a rule of thumb that it always should be a requirement. Your influence should always be a requirement when submitting work. Is there a shortcut that you're going through? Because if AI is acting as a shortcut for you, unless it's reducing time spent on repetitive tasks like making flashcards, then you're cheating yourself out of learning as well. So that tells us that when you're unsure, stop and evaluate everything that you do, because as we learned throughout the series, AI is definitely a part of the future. However, there will be people who know how to use it correctly and efficiently, and people who use it much less efficiently. And so you should always be engaging in an evaluative process, looking at how you use AI and seeing whether it's actually helping you or hindering you. So in that case, that'll wrap up this video. Thank you very much for watching. And please feel free to refer to the rest of the AI playlist video to learn more about how to use AI safely, responsibly, and effectively. Thank you very much for watching.